Okay, we're back, and it's COMP308, Emergence Technologies, and it's week 5, lesson 5, and it's part 5. It's not part 2, but this is part 2 of our PowerPoint series. Okay, let's take a look at this thing. So let's talk about jQuery Mobile. What is this thing? Well, typically, remember, up until now, like I spoke yesterday, we've been using responsive design to target mobile, right? But what this allows us to do, instead of using media queries, is it allows us to target a specific, and as we go through progressive enhancement, target a specific viewport, which would be the mobile viewport. So small, if you're using Foundation, right? So we're going to use, we can use JavaScript and jQuery to detect the mobile devices. We can also use server-side scripting from PHP to do that. We have to be able to detect the device to target it, right? Otherwise, what's going to happen is, it's not just viewport size. Now we're targeting a specific device that's incoming. Well, how do we do that? Where there's something called, every device has a user agent string that it sends out when it's reading a page, right? So every device has this user agent string that says, hi, I'm an iPhone and I'm using Safari and I'm surfing the web with iOS 8, you know, kind of thing. That's what it does. So it's using this user agent string. Well, what we can do is we can go to this site. There's a really quick plugin, a little tool that you can use called detectmobilebrowsers.com. Let's do that together. We're going to go out to this site here, Detect Mobile Browsers. And what it does is it gives you some really cool code snippets, right? So you can include this in the head of your document, right? So an example, if I want to use, if I'm using ASP.NET, it gives me a little code. If I'm using C# to create our pages or IIS, here's my JavaScript and jQuery, which I'm really interested in. This is the stuff that I'm going to use now, and there's also a Node.js piece as well now. But before they didn't have that. So let's go to JavaScript. If I actually go to the JavaScript text file that it gives me, it looks like this. It looks like this ugly file, right? What is this that we're seeing here? It looks like gobbledygook, right? It's actually a minified JavaScript file. And the only thing we have to worry about is where it's, when we go to our mobile site, and by the way, we include this JavaScript file, right, this detection, at the top of our page. This is the first time I'm going to ask you to do that, to put this JavaScript at the top of the page, not at the bottom, right? So that way it detects what kind of, what device is incoming, right? And then it uses this redirect down here, right? Here's a redirect string, and right now we're saying, we want to kind of replace detectmobilebrowser.com, this piece where it says HTTP here, with our own website. So instead of detectmobilebrowser.com, let's say my website was called Steliopoulos.com. I would take this and go Steliopoulos.com, right? And then mobile, because mobile is going to be where I'm going to house my mobile site, right? So it's going to redirect it to that. So instead of, once it detects a mobile browser from an iPhone or from a you know, whatever, it's going to redirect it into this one. And it detects different kinds of phones. This is a really cool little link. You can do this here with JavaScript, which I recommend, right? Or you can do it, of course, with jQuery. There's a jQuery version as well, if you're a jQuery person, right? So here's jQuery Mobile, and it says, hey, you need to load up jQuery Mobile first, right? And then you can do your redirection. And again, you'd have to, if you read carefully, this is a little bit more challenging to read, right? Because you want to go to mobile browser. This mobile, detectmobilebrowser.com is not the place you want to go. You have to look in here and modify the string that's in here for your mobile browser to go to your site, right? So I find this a little bit more challenging when you first look at it, because it's like, holy crap, it's full of, you know, this stuff here, right? But if you notice, it says, you can actually go through here and see where you navigate to the new page, right? So this is the other way to do it. I recommend the JavaScript version. It's just easier to change the text, right, when we do our user agent string detection. Again, what am I doing here? I'm detecting the mobile device that's incoming, so I can redirect the page to our custom mobile site. That's a different thing than what we did before. Before, I was looking at the viewport size, how big the viewport's incoming, right? Now, I don't care how big the viewport is. If I'm on a mobile device, an iPhone, an iPad, something like that, I'm going to redirect it, you know, to to my site. I can also, if you're a PHP user, you can also use PHP. Let's take a look at the PHP code really quickly. Not that we're covering it, but I want to show it to you. It looks almost identical to the JavaScript version because here I can see that detectmobilebrowser.com is down here, and you just replace this with your own location, and it'll go through this. And this, of course, you put this little PHP code at the top of your website. And this is your regular website, so you put this in the top of your desktop website, and it'll redirect for this. But that's every mobile device. If it's a mobile device, iPad included, it'll redirect. This may not be how you want to do things because maybe all you care for is an iPhone. And if you actually read through some of this, you can detect and redirect only for that as opposed to just everything, right? So it's not just mobile, like it talks BlackBerry, different kinds and so on. It detects user agent strings. You can also choose to detect or to redirect only for certain devices. Okay. But like I said to you from an assignment 2 perspective, remember we talked about assignment 2 yesterday. Let me just bring that up again, right, for people who weren't here as well. For assignment 2, what we said was you're creating this mobile specific web app for your portfolio site, right? I'm not asking you to rewrite your site. I'm asking you so that way when a user agent string comes in with iPhone or whether it's iPhone or Android that comes in, only for that mobile size, I want you to redirect the user to a different website. Now, what I'm telling you is you don't have to redirect them as long as you upload. This doesn't have to be live, this piece. I'm going to give you bonus marks to make it live, so it works live, right? So if I test it with my mobile phone, it redirects me, I'll give you mobile bonus marks for it. I won't take marks away, right? So if it doesn't work and all you do is upload the site, or give me the GitHub link to this new site that you're making, that would be sufficient for this assignment, okay? Because in the past, people have had a lot of issues doing that. They don't know how to do a user agent string detection, even if it just showed you how to do it, right? I showed you what you need to put in there. People don't understand. And I'm going to show you even more because I've got these files I just downloaded, right? If I go to my downloads, I've just got these 3 files that I took off the site, right? There's this JavaScript file, and I'm just going to delete this one, which is just jQuery. And this PHP file, right? These two files are the files you can use. If you notice, they've got a .js.text extension. You just got to change the extension to PHP or JavaScript, and we're good to go, right? Well, let's use it. So I want to go to my website. We're working on this one right here. Here's my index.html right now, right? And normally I would put my scripts in here. Well, I don't want to put my scripts down here. I want it to, when I load my page, I want it to redirect. So imagine if this was my main page, but on mobile, I want it to redirect. Then what I would do is, of course, I would put it in under, this redirecting section up here. So I would say, check for mobile browsers, right? And inside here, I would take I'm just going to go inside here and just rename my stuff from my downloads, and let's go here. So here's my JavaScript file, right? I'm going to just rename this thing to the JS version. So I take away my text file. Here's my JavaScript file now. Yes, I do. And once I've done that, this JavaScript file, I'm going to stop debugging for a second. I'm going to go to Solutions Explorer, and I'm going to drag and drop this file that I downloaded from the web. I'm going to put it inside my scripts. So here it is, detect mobile browsers. And I'm going to include this underneath this section. So this is where I'm going to redirect them right here with this little script here. So before it even gets to here, my regular content, I will detect mobile browsers. And let's take a look and see what that looks like. It's a bunch of gobbledygook, right? And I don't care about any of this stuff because if you notice, it looks at Blackberries, and you don't have to look and see what all this is. I'm just going to go right to the end where it says this is where it redirects. So on that, it's going to redirect to my site called mobile, and this is where it's going to go, right? That's why it's easier to do it in a text file than here. But I can also, if you have a problem viewing it like this, I can also go to Tools, Options, and I can go into my JavaScript piece for editors for inside my, my Visual Studio environment. So here's my text editor. And inside just the JavaScript, I can add in a word wrap, right? So that way it wraps everything so I can see it. right? So here's the compressed, minified version of my redirection JavaScript piece, detectmobilebrowsers.js, and I just redirect them with my website, wherever it's going to go. Okay, if I had such a thing, mobile, right? I actually do, right? But it's called just this, right? It doesn't have to go to mobile because this is a domain that I'm using for examples, right? And if I go to that domain for a second with my regular browsers, like I showed you, it'll redirect to this jQuery mobile stub that I put together just as an example, right? This is what the jQuery mobile piece looks like, right? When it's live. This is live on GitHub, right? That's all it does right now. And we're going to build this in a second. Okay, so this is cool. I've done this piece, and I can run this thing, right? So I'm going to run this thing now just the way we had it before, and it's not going to make a shred of difference, right? If I refresh this thing, it doesn't detect a user agent string here. Look, it's not detecting a user agent string that's mobile, so it's just feeding me this data, right? But if I want to redirect, well, there are some browsers that allow me to change my user agent string, and I can do that in my developer tools, right? A lot of them have, especially from a, you can't do it here in Chrome, but you can do it in IE, and you can do it in Firefox. Right, so let's take a look at this, and I'm just going to take a look at this site here. I'm just going to copy this link, and I'm going to go into Internet Explorer for a second. So here's IE. Right, so here's my local link here. I'm still debugging. I'm still using the same local host. So here's IE. So it's giving me the same data, right? But IE's tools, my developer tools, I'm just going to go to my developer tools section. So here's my developer tools for F12, right? And the great thing about this, I can emulate. Well, that's actually the emulator. I can actually go and change my user agent string, right, in here. I'm trying to remember how to do it now. But you can actually change it so it's not IE anymore. It's not like going in with IE desktop. It's going with, I'm subbing it in so it looks like it's mobile. Let's try with Firefox for a second. Hold on a second. One of them really does it right easy. Firefox has got great tools. Firebug is built into it. Let me just do this. Again, there's what it looks like on Firefox. And I have Firebug. Yeah. And of course, it is going to go to Developer Tools. Here's my developer toolbar, right? Let's go to that. Here it is. And the thing with it, you can redirect by using a user agent string that's different than what it is, right? Safari does it really well on mobile with Apple devices, right? So if I was to use devices for Apple, here's my Safari, and if you notice if I go to develop, right, I go to user agent, and I can choose, a different kind of thing, Mac and so on, right? Now, my Safari, obviously, you may not have Safari, but it's built in to the developer piece if you turn it on, right? So I can choose if I'm an iPhone, an iPad. I can look like the kind of device I want to be. Now, I can't do that because right now I'm running. This is on the Mac side. I'm going to have to run Safari here. Just trying to make it so that I want to show you the example. I don't want to make you freaked out here when I do this. So let's just download Safari, just from an example perspective. So I'm going to go download Safari, right?
Does Safari have Android as well?
Safari do Android or just Apple phones, you mean?
Yeah.
We'll see in a second. So for Windows, and I'm going to download, and as soon as it's finished downloading, let's just check what the question you just asked. I go to develop, and I gotta go to thing, and it looks like just Safari or Internet Explorer right now. Firefox, Mac, and Windows. I can actually put in other. If I go to other, I can put in the user agent string. I can kind of put in my own user agent string, whatever I want in here, and call it whatever I want. This is the good thing, right? So the user agent string just acts, it kind of fools the browser into thinking that it's a mobile device, right? So I want to just simulate what it looks like here for you guys, right? So yeah, really quickly, I'm not going to make this the default, right? Yeah. I just want to do this so it's fast and dirty. By the way, there's other tools that I've already showed you do this too, but I want to show you right in the browser how it would work. And Safari seems to be the one. Hopefully, it'll have the same tools that on the Windows side as it does on the Mac. But again, Safari is a free download from the web, so it's not like it's going to cost you anything. It's just a browser. And I'll let it do its thing. But I've also shown you other tools. Sure. Okay, so here's Safari. Right now, for Safari, what I need to do is I need to turn on the developer side, right? My developer tools for Safari, right? So I got to go to. First, I want to show my menu bar here. That's the first thing I want to do, and I want to turn on my developer tools. So I'm going to go to Preferences. And if I go to Advanced, and if I think I want to turn on the developer toolbar so I can see it, here's the develop, right? And then from there, now I can choose a user agent string of whatever I want. First, let's go to that site. I'm just going to close this off for a second. I'm going to go to this site here, right, that we already saw. So here's my site, right, and using Safari. I'm going to use develop user agent string, and instead of that, I'm going to try and look like an iPhone. Let's see what happens. Boom, it redirects me. Right? I didn't do that. I mean, if I go back, right? So I put this in, right? And now my user agent string. See, this is the local host. I'm using my index.html. If I go bang, it's going to sub in as an iPhone. If I go back to develop user agent string. And instead of looking like an iPhone, I'm just going to look like Safari's or my default, right? And I go back to this, it's going to be able to read this again. So all I'm doing is changing my user agent string to look like a phone. So I appear to the browser as if I'm a phone. Make sense? And I'm using that redirection JavaScript to redirect me when I am a phone, right? So if I'm a phone or an iPad, redirect me somewhere else. Let's try iPad to see if it redirects me for iPad too. So here's iPad, and when I go through here, I load it, but iPad doesn't redirect because I don't want it. It's only for phones, right? Which is a good redirection string. If I go in here and I choose, instead of iPad, I choose iPod Touch, right? Well, that redirects because that's a mobile device. Let's do it again. If I go back, so I have to go back one. I'm going to put it in my link here. And I'm going to go with user agent string default, right? Here it is. Here's my default string, right? And I go user agent string instead of an iPhone. I go with some other version of Safari on a Mac. It's not going to change anything. I'm just making it so that it looks like I'm a Mac, right? That's all it is. But the developer, the user agent string, the great thing for testing is I want to look like an iPhone or an iPod, right? So here's my iPhone. It'll redirect me to Celiopolis.com because I have a live site I can test with right now. You can try it with my site. Put in my site because I have kind of a mobile site that looks like this, right? You can try this out to use your redirection so it goes here if you wanted to. But what I'd like to do if you want to get the bonus marks for assignment 2 is make the redirection work for your site. So when your site sees an iPhone or some kind of Android device or BlackBerry, it redirects you using that JavaScript piece to your mobile site. Okay? Here's the challenge. What happens when you want to go back to, and this is where you get the extra marks. Might have a link that says, hey, click here to go back to the desktop version. Will it ever go back to the desktop version using this protocol? The answer is no, because you have to use some funky JavaScript in there to say, if the users click this, disable this piece up here. right? It's got to be disabled, or else what's going to happen is no matter what they click on the bottom, it'll always redirect them, right? Because remember, this redirection string works every time, right? On every one of, and this has to be on every one of your pages. So if you have a page that, for example, for bio, a separate page for your index, a separate page for your contact page, a separate page for all these other pages, each of these pages has to be able to redirect the user back to the mobile side, right? So be careful when you do the redirection for extra bonus marks, it has to work right. That's why I'm not making it mandatory. It's not easy to implement. It takes a little bit of thinking. Okay, so I've covered the redirection, and I've shown you user agent strings. But what about if you don't have Safari? You don't want to get Safari. How can I do it without? Well, I've given you some tools. I'm just going to go back to Chrome for a second. So let's run this same site here with Chrome, right? So I'm just going to kind of refresh. And I'm back here with Chrome. But I want to do this redirection. I want to check what my site would look like, and does the redirection work, right? Well, remember, I gave you these web tools for responsive design, but they also work for, I'm just going to look at viewports. The Responsinator does that. If I go to Responsinator, if I kind of access this thing, right, and I put in the site, which is this, right, what the Responsinator does is it tries to take your current site and spit it into here, right? So, hey, this is what my responsive site's going to look like. But it doesn't have a user agent string. It doesn't do that. It doesn't say, hey, here's my user agent string. It's a different user agent string, because the Responsinator is going to still be, kind of our regular way of looking at things. Now, up on eCentennial, I uploaded earlier this mobilizer app, right? Let me just look at this mobilizer app. So I'm going to double click on this thing, and maybe one day it'll work. Here we go. All right. Again, I'm not going to update it. And instead of the phones, I'm going to put in here, I'm going to put in my site. Right, here's my site. I'm going to kind of enter. And I'm going to choose a phone. I'm going to make it so it's an iPhone 4S or 5S. Here it is. Here's my white iPhone 5S. And look what it does. It detects the user agent string and spins it into my phone. So it gives me that phone-like effect. Right?
What program is that?
It's called Mobilizer. I put it up on eCentennial for you. Right? It's one of my first uploads. If you go to code, you've seen it, right? You download it and you can install it. You need to have Air for installed on your Windows, right? Or the Mac if you're using a Mac or Windows, and then you can install this application. It's an Air application. It's up on eCentennial, so yes, it would be. I put it there for you. Right?
Some things they're free, but then for extra features you have to pay.
There's no extra features. You have nothing extra to do. Right? You may not have the same number of phones as I do. Right? Here's all the extra phones. You might not get all these phones, but that's okay. It's just extra, little strings that you put. These are just, all these things is user agent strings to tell you what kind of phone and the way the design looks. So the design will look like a phone. So if I want to do prototyping, right, and I want to see what my site would look like with a mobile phone, I could use Mobilizer to kind of do a screen capture. I can screen capture this phone right here, and I can use it in my documentation, saying, oh, this is what it would look like on an iPhone. Right? All right. So the difference between Responsinator, which is a web-based app, and Mobilizer, which is kind of a native app, is it gives you this ability to see these user agent strings. Okay. So I'm going to leave this up as I go back to our PowerPoint because we're going to need it. Okay. So remember, this assignment 2 is strictly dealing with creating a portfolio site that's mobile using jQuery Mobile, or if you don't want to use jQuery Mobile, you can use Ratchet. Okay, please don't use something else. This is not. I'm going to repeat myself. This is not a responsive design exercise. You've already done that with assignment 1. This is a targeting exercise. You're targeting a phone, right? So you have 2 types of web design, right? One that gives you you're reflowing your content with responsive design. So it hits most devices, like 99% of devices it'll kind of work on. But let's say your client, like I said last day, your client says, Tom, I don't want a reflowing, responsive design. It's neat. I want you to make a web app for me that looks like a native app for Android or for iPhone. Can you do that with the web? And the answer is yes, we can. And we're going to do jQuery Mobile or Ratchet. One of those 2 technologies will do the same thing for us. And it'll look very, very web app-like. In a second, you'll see. So that's what this assignment's all about. Okay, so we've done this detection piece, right? And again, it's just showing you places where you would change. The documentation online here on within this PowerPoint tells you again, even if you forgot, how to do it. You can just change the detect mobile browser JavaScript file you would download and change it to whatever your site is going to look like. Okay. One of the things we want to do with mobile devices is have this. I keep doing this every time. Every time we do a our template when we create websites. Let me go over here again to on the Visual Studio side. I always have this viewport content width is equal to the device width initial scale of 1. If you notice, I've been doing that every single time. I've been kind of slipping that in, right? Because for mobile devices, it's good to have this setting the width of your viewport to the width of the viewer. So what this does, it says, hey, my viewport for my mobile device, I want this thing to fit inside my mobile device. Right? I don't want my viewport to be this big when my mobile device viewport is only this big. Right? Even when I use Responsinator, right? If I go back to the website here, here's Responsinator. If you notice, right, my viewport size, it wraps in here, right? Because I've used this meta tag width is equal to device width initial scale 1 without doing any kind of reflowing, right? There's no foundation here at all, right? I've just got jQuery and my JavaScript file, and just this one meta tag allows me to reflow my text so it doesn't go all the way outside of my viewport area, right? So I've been slipping that in every time for you guys. So worst case, when you build a site, if you don't want to use foundation or any kind of responsive design, put this darn meta tag in, will you? Right? Because it helps our mobile devices. That's why I've been doing it every time. Okay, this is that piece. And it tells you different options. For example, there's the width of the viewport in pixels, the height of the viewport in pixels. You can specify these things as well if you want to. Initial scale, what's my initial scale? 1 means 100%. You can change this if you want to make the initial scale 0.5 or some other number, you can do that too. There's the minimum scale and the maximum scale. So if you want a zoom factor so you don't, you want people to only go at a certain level. You don't want them to pinch and zoom too far. You can do that with this. And also you can specify if it's even user scalable at all down here. You can say user scalable is equal to no. And you may want to turn that on because you know what? When we do our jQuery mobile site, we want to set that user scalable is equal to no because we don't want them to pinch and zoom. It makes no sense for the user to be able to pinch and zoom in our mobile site. We want it to be fixed. Otherwise, you can make your design, he can pinch and zoom, and all of a sudden your design is whacked, right? Because he's zoomed your site, right? You don't want that to happen with a mobile site. It's specific, right? So you can turn that function on. So we're going to make that. When we make our new jQuery mobile template in a second, we're going to do that. We're going to take away this ability for the user to make a scalable site, okay? I'm not going to go through these guidelines too big. Basically, you got to think about making it scalable. I'm just going to go to the jQuery piece. Again, you can download jQuery mobile from the site and or use the CDN. We're going to use the download to show how this works. Let me go back over here to on the Visual Studio side. Let's do it together. This is your piece to do together with me now. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to close this solution off. So here's Visual Studio, and if you're following along, right, with this piece, I want you to actually let me just make sure that there's nothing that I have to upload really quickly. I'm going to go to Solution Explorer, Team Explorer, because you guys are going to get mad at me, people online. Tom, you did all these changes, updated, or I'll say added browser detection. User agent string detection to site. All right, so you can see that. I'm going to go home. I'm going to go to unsync commits and sync. So this piece is done, and then I'm going to close my solution. Okay, cool. Let's create our brand new template for jQuery mobile. It's really important we do this from scratch. Well, here's a really quick way to do it. File, new, project. And now we're going to create a web project. I'm going to choose ASP.NET web application. You guys with me? I'm going to call this thing COMP308 jQuery mobile. Right? jQuery mobile. And I'm going to create a, the solution name is going to be part of our, if you guys can see this, it's going to be the solution name, and I'm also going to add it to my Git repository. Here it is. Press OK. It's creating it. I'm going to go into my GitHub now, and I'm going to create my new repository online so you guys can follow along. Right, we're going to call this COMP308, and it's jQuery mobile. That's where it's going to be, the repository. I'm going to create my repository on here. I'm going to grab the URI, just like we normally, you've seen this done now a million times by now, for sure. I'm going to go into my Team Explorer, right? Here's my Team Explorer, and I'm going to drag and drop it in here. But before I do that, I better do a commit. It's good to do an initial commit. There we go. Here's my initial commit, and then, go into unsync commits, and paste, and publish. Once I've done that, of course, now you're able to follow along, and you can watch what I'm doing here with my jQuery demo. So I'll close this off. Actually, I'll go to my jQuery site to download everything. So I'm going to go jQuery, this is where you get everything, mobile.com, right? jQueryMobile.com takes you to this page where you can download your latest stable release. Now if you click this, right, latest stable, it'll just download everything, right, this is jQuery Mobile 1.4.5. You can do it this way, but I'll tell you, this is the long way, right? The quick way, since we're using Visual Studio, is to actually use Visual Studio to do it, right? So I don't have any files in here, but I want to add jQuery Mobile to my page. So how do I do that? I go to Tools, and I'm going to go to NuGet Package Manager, and I'm going to go to NuGet Packages for Solution, Manage it. And in here where it says Search, I'm going to go jQuery Mobile. I've already kind of have the search in there. And if you notice on top of here, it says jQuery Mobile, a unified user system across all popular mobile device platforms built on the popular jQuery platform. So I'm going to just choose this and press Install, right? And then when I do that, it includes all the files I need, 1.45, including jQuery and everything else, into my project. Let's take a look what I got here. I got a couple things. I got contents and scripts automatically, right? It's all in my project. I don't have to work hard here, right? Here's my scripts. These are all the jQuery scripts I need, right? I got my minified version as well as my unminified version of jQuery, right? Plus my IntelliSense file for jQuery and for jQuery and jQuery Mobile, right? And my content is all the CSS pieces that I need. This is all the CSS that I need for jQuery and jQuery Mobile, right? Typically, I'd want my content piece to be my CSS, but Microsoft likes content as a place where it holds its stuff. I simply could leave it this way, right? Because it also includes images for icons and all this other stuff, right? If I use NuGet to do it, my CSS, if I looked at my jQuery Mobile CSS that's in here, as an example, like this one, which is the unminified version, if I actually look at the file, what does it do? It looks at, it's actually going to look at specific places on my website, right, for different images, like data image, and it's going to look at this long, it says couldn't locate, right, where this background image and stuff, because what it's trying to find is this custom CSS, all this extra data for my CSS, right? Trying to find it, right? So this is definitely one way we can do it. If it says, look at where it says images, icons. For all my icons, though, it's looking at the images folder for all my icons, and I'm going to need my icons if I use this thing. So that's why it's a good idea to leave it the way it is if I'm going to use NuGet the NuGet package manager to do it. Okay. Just wanted to give you a brief glance at what it looks like. Okay, we just still need our index.html. I'm going to leave these things the way they are, and I'm going to go kind of new or add, and I'm going to go index.html page, right? Here's my index, right? And, oh, I need my stuff. It doesn't give me that piece. It doesn't give me my basics, right? So I got to do all that still. So I got to do a lang is equal to English, right? And you know what? In the head of my document, I still need to put those meta tags in. So the first meta tag has got to be a character set as UTF-8, right? And the second meta tag, this is where I'm going to make some changes, right? Here's my meta tag where name is equal to viewport, and content, this is where it gets funky, is this one. User scalable is equal to no, right? I want to use this one, not the first one I always use. Because what this does, it says, hey, I don't want to use any other content, just this, right? Okay, and here I'm going to put COMP308 jQuery mobile demo, right? Save it. I still need to do the same stuff I did before, right? Where I kind of have a CSS section here. I still need to do this. And on the bottom, I still need to have some kind of JavaScript section to link things in. So JavaScript section, right? My CSS section, if you notice, in my content, I got all this CSS, right? To jQuery mobile, and there's also specific CSS for other things. Inline, structure, theme, all this other stuff. For now, all I'd ask you to do is drag in this minified version of the jQuery mobile 1.4.5 min.css in here. That's when we're building it. Okay, that's the style sheet. So it's the minified version, right? And in my JavaScript section, I need a couple of things. So I'm going to go back to my scripts. And in scripts, I do need a couple of things. One of them is I need my jQuery mobile first, sorry, my jQuery first, which is here in this particular case, it's 1.8.0. That's perfectly fine. 2.x. whatever is also fine. If you're gonna modify this, it would work perfectly fine as well. I'm gonna use the minified version, right? In my files, here it is. And I'm also gonna drag in my 1.4.5 jQuery mobile minified version. Okay, here's my minified version of both those things. I have an IntelliSense file, but I also, if you remember what I did before, I'm going to right-click and I'm going to add in there a reference JavaScript IntelliSense file, which actually adds these other ones in there as well, right? So there's these ones. Okay. If you notice, one thing I don't have in here is a normalizing, because you know what? jQuery Mobile has a normalizer built in to its CSS, so you don't have to do it. I do, however, want to add in, if I want to add my own CSS file, this is where I would kind of do my own custom CSS, where I would create my own folder called CSS, right? And inside my CSS, this is where I would put my app.css in here. And maybe what I would call it, because I know I already have app.css for my main page, my portfolio site, I would rename this thing to mobile, because I want my CSS to be mobile, right? So here's my mobile CSS, where I'm going to do any kind of changes I'm going to add in here. And I'm just going to go underneath my other style sheet, because it's going to be anything I want to make, any other changes I want to add in to the changes that jQuery Mobile made, I want to do here, right? I also want to add in my custom JavaScript, which is going to go under scripts. I'm going to say add a JavaScript file, and I'm going to add in, you know, my mobile.js, right? My mobile.js file, because it's mobile. I don't want it to be the same as my app.js, right? Although I could share the same JavaScript file if I wanted to. And I want to take this mobile.js file and put it underneath the jQuery mobile one. This is my own mobile site that I'm making, right? So I'm just going to leave a little separator here so I know that it's mine, right? And I also want to, in the body tag, I want to call my JavaScript function. I want to be prepared to call it. So I'm going to put an onload function in here where I'm going to call my JavaScript file if I need to make my own custom changes. So here I'm going to call it an init function in my JavaScript file. And inside my JavaScript file, I'm just going to save everything for a second. I'm going to go into my JavaScript, my custom JavaScript file right here. I'm going to create a function called init, right? And inside there, I'm going to say just a console.log, tell me that my mobile app has started, right? This is my old mobile app, right, that I'm creating. Here's my mobile. One thing I do want to get rid of is here's my CSS. In my CSS, I got these brackets for body. I don't want to touch my body tag right now. So I'm going to leave it as empty for now until I need to make any changes. Okay, so I've done all those changes. I've got my basic structure for, I've included all these things. And if I was to run this thing right now, I shouldn't get any errors. That's the first thing I want to do. But I don't get any content either because I don't have anything here. So here we go. I'm going to go to More Tools, go to JavaScript Console, and I should see if there's any errors, it should tell me what the problem is. And it says, hey, look, my location of my jQuery Mobile 1.4.5 map is missing, right? It's looking in the same place for my jQuery Mobile map. It's looking in this place. It's trying to find it. And it says, let's make sure I refresh here. But my old mobile app has started. And the reason why it's saying this kind of stuff is because there's nothing in here for my jQuery. Right? I've got nothing in here. It's trying to look for something that doesn't exist. Right? That's because I haven't put any content in place. Okay, so we've got our stuff downloaded. Now, if you download from here, if you notice, you do get jQuery 1.8, and you do get, or it says 2.1.11, 1.11, and jQuery 2.1. So if I actually go to see what my downloads, if I want to do it manually, if I'm a manual kind of guy, which is perfectly fine, right? If you want to control the stuff that came in, here's my jQuery, and I'm just going to unzip it. So I want to kind of inspect what this is giving me, right? Just because if I want to manually set it up, if I don't like what I was given, here's what's the manual download look like. If you notice, it's almost the exact same. 1.45. I've got my jQuery mobile and my jQuery inside here. My regular jQuery, if you notice, is just the mobile. There's no jQuery itself. I can take jQuery. Here's my images, all the same images for my ping files, but I don't have anything else in here. I just have my jQuery mobile, my mobile theme, but no jQuery. And I also have, it comes with a couple of demos, which is kind of cool. And it comes with demos for Backbone. It comes with demos for all kinds of other stuff that jQuery Mobile works really nicely with, right? So if we're ever going to explore some demos, this is the way we could do it. We could look at some here, and you could find some instructions on how to make everything work. If I was actually going to double click here and run this thing, this is what the demos looks like. And if you notice, this is my local file here, right? Where if I want to understand how to do buttons, it shows you what the buttons and the anchor tags look like. Hey, look, this looks very foundational-like, right? Where we're marking up our stuff, right, with the jQuery mobile classes that are built in, right? And this is where we're going to go with this. We're going to go with marking up our regular HTML with jQuery mobile. Okay. So before that, I'm just going to go into, I'm not going to do that right now, right? It does this. So it does the same thing. The only thing that it allows you to do is instead of using 1.8 for my jQuery, if I want to use jQuery 2.x, I can do that as well, and it would work just fine. But the only thing is that anything after 1.8 is not compatible with Internet Explorer 7, 8, and 9, right? So if we don't care about those things, then certainly you can go to the next level of jQuery, right? Now, I do have the next level of jQuery, but I'm going to leave it the way this is because this is how I downloaded it from NuGet Package Manager, and it's going to work just fine. Okay. And this is full compatibility this way too, right? Okay, so it doesn't do anything right now, and what I'm going to do is in my Solution Explorer, I'm going to stop debugging. In my Team Explorer, I'm going to go in there to my home and go to Changes, and you see I've got 227 changes of extra files that jQuery Mobile has given me. I'm going to say added JQM framework to site, right? So I'm going to click Commit. And once my commit is done, I'm going to go to Unsync Commits and sync it up. There it is. And I'm going to shut this one down for a second and we'll record another movie for the pieces of jQuery Mobile.